Hello, boys and girls. This is your friend Anonymous Bosk back again, and I am doing another Frank Zappa themed video. This one is going to be on this album I hold in my hands right here. It is called Thing-Fish. I just want you to have a good look at this. Man. Alright, so this album is definitely widely considered to be one of his very least popular albums. Sorry, let me fix this camera here. So, Thing-Fish is hated pretty much by most fans of Frank Zappa completely hate it. And everything I read about it or see about it online, everybody is just offended by it, and which I can see that. I mean, maybe that was Frank's intention on this album. But I just want to talk about it because I had gotten it since my last video, which was showing you all of my Frank Zappa collection. And yeah, I've still been listening to him all the time. And I've gotten this record since that video. It's so good. I don't understand. Like, maybe it's because Frank Zappa fans, maybe they're more like prog rock, or maybe they're just, it's not what they come to expect from a Frank Zappa record. And I get it, but this was meant to be a Broadway play. The record comes with a libretto, and the whole, it's a story. It's an absurd, at times offensive, at times uncomfortable story. But the songs are awesome. I don't understand. Like, okay, yeah, there's rehashed songs from some of his other albums, songs from You Are What You Is and Zoot Allures and other albums, but I mean, they totally redid them to fit into the plot of this large-scale play. I wish it would have gotten made. I think it got like partially made a few times. You can look up some stuff on YouTube about it, but Frank's wife Gail, I think, only gave them permission to do certain parts of it for whatever reason. I think that this whole thing should have been a play. I love it. I've listened to it a bunch. It's become one of my favorite Frank Zappa albums, and everybody is, I don't know, it's because of offensive subject matter. So I'm gonna get into now about kind of what's on this album and what the themes of the play were supposed to be. It never got made, but in a way, it's kind of nice that it never got made because this is how you experience it. It's a listening experience, and you envision all of this stuff happening, and whether you like it or not, you kind of have to. So I can see how it's pretty controversial. I'll start with that. One of the first things that's brought up in this is that the government has planted a potion in the mashed potatoes at San Quentin to, sort of alter the DNAs of the prisoners and the undesirables and the sissy boys. So they're trying to put this in the food supply, and basically what this does is this turns people into these deformed kind of monsters that have potatoes as their heads, and they have duck lips, and they're just completely obscene, kind of wild, deformed humans. And they do have small bladders, though, so they kind of pee on a lot on stage and all over the place. So I guess that's pretty grotesque. But it starts out with Thing-Fish, who is voiced by Ike Willis, who is one of my favorite characters in general, just in a movie or a play. Or Thing-Fish is the shit. His everything he says is hilarious. He speaks in this dialect that could be definitely viewed as offensive. It's almost like one of the things he says is an Ignat McNugget. And he just, when he says potion, he says potion. And man, everything he says is gold. And he talks a lot throughout this album. And there's not a lot of guitar solos in this album, which a lot of Frank Zappa fans are like, oh, where's my guitar solos? And oh, this is complete garbage because it doesn't have guitar solos, which, if that's what you expect, you know, but you should expect to not expect what you're gonna hear from Frank Zappa. You know, you shouldn't be like, oh, I expect this from an album, so it's gonna be that. Like, he never does that, you know, and for this, was completely clear what this was supposed to be. So if you don't like, you know, listening to a story, or, you know, if you don't, you know, like a lot of talking, then this album's definitely not for you. I love narration, and I love following along the story. I read along the libretto, and it makes it so much funnier. There's so much moments in this that fucking make me crack up. I love the comedy in this is just incredible. And so it starts out with Thing-Fish, and he's telling the story of how the government put things in the mashed potatoes, their potions in the mashed potatoes. And there's this thing called a galoot kalagna, which apparently it's like fast food that deforms you, basically. It's something, it's like part of the potion, the galoot kalagna. And don't ask me what that means or how the hell they came up with that, but that is, it's the killer galoot, you know, it's the thing that they get addicted to that kind of further deforms them. And so Thing-Fish is what's called a Mammy Nun, and the Mammy Nuns are basically all the people that have been deformed from the mashed potatoes. So it comes out with, he explains everything, and then it goes to the song Mammy Nuns, which I love. I can't get it out of my head. It's just, it's been taking over my mind, and there's a really sick version of it on You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore, Volume 1, that is so good. The Mammy Anthem, I think it is. It's so good. I mean, I love the original song, but when you put it in the live context, it's like this heavy, like, kind of jam that when you put it live and they're just rocking it, and then there's a guitar solo in the live one, which I know I was just saying, oh, it doesn't have a guitar solo, people are complaining, but the guitar solo in the live one is so cool. It's one of, you know, it's just a killer Frank Zappa guitar solo, and you know what that is if you listen to his music, you know. So the Mammy Nuns is a sick jam, and then it kind of goes into, the Mammy Nuns are performing a play, so it's kind of like a play within a play, which a lot of people are like, oh god, it's a freaking play within, it's a movie within, it's a dream within a dream, it's Inception, you know. But I think it's tight, because it's like they're performing a play that is just completely obscene and crazy and telling a story, and then the audience are these two white folks named Harry and Rhonda. Harry is kind of like oh, it's okay, honey, like everything is fine, and Rhonda is like, I can't believe this is so grotesque, and what happened to Broadway, and what happened to the fairies on the strings, and blah blah blah. And the Mammy Nuns actually piss on Harry and Rhonda's like, they pissed on us, Harry. He's like, Harry's like, oh, it's just theater piss. It's fine. It's not a big deal. You know, just go with the flow. Everything's going to be fine. And then they take him up and they put him in chains, and they bring him on the stage, or they bring him wherever, and they lock him up. And then it goes into the galoot. It talks more about the galoot kalagna, which I mentioned earlier. And that's kind of like the first record. This is a 3-record set. So that's the first side of the first record. And then the story continues and, you know, grows and builds and just goes into all kinds of crazy shit. And so the next side introduces the evil prince, and it starts with Torchum Never Stops. And Torchum is how the Mammy Nuns will say torture. They'll say Torchum. The Torchum never stops, you know. And so instead of the Zoot Allures version of Torture Never Stops, which has a nutty guitar solo that's so good. This one has an interlude by the Evil Prince, and the Evil Prince kind of is like, these mammies are, we need to destroy these mammies, and they hate us, and blah, 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 blah. And the Evil Prince is in a beige, some kind of beige, bland beige prison or bland beige world or something. It's really cool, but so the Evil Prince gets introduced on the next side, and sort of this section of the album is where a lot of the I don't know the exact order of it, but where like Torch 'Em Never Stops, and then it'll do some other like Frank, like You Are What You Is, and it's different versions of those that has Thing-Fish narrating throughout the whole thing, and he's kind of laying out the story as these tunes are playing. So I mean, it's not complete. Like, there's songs in here, and a lot of people say that the songs are terrible, or they're rehashed versions that are way worse than the original, and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, in my opinion, I like all the songs. I think this is a pleasurable album to listen to, if you can't tell. But, so, after the Evil Prince, Harry and Rhonda, you know, are still at this play, and they're still watching, and then Thing-Fish says, oh, we're going to introduce Harry as a boy. And so they bring on Harry, but it's him as a boy, and he says, oh, I want to fall in love, and I want to do blah, 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 and I want to do all this stuff. And then he says, at the end of it, he says, and then I want to turn gay as soon as possible. And like Ike Willis or Thing-Fish is like, what? You know, you want to... And then he goes on to explain that because women are dressed up in suits and carrying briefcases, that it's like having sex with someone's father, and he doesn't think that that's too attractive of an idea, so he wants to turn as gay as possible. I understand how that is a, you know, racy thing to say, and you know, I'm in no way misogynistic, and I believe that in women's equal rights and all this stuff. But in some of Frank Zappa's music, and like Bobby Brown Goes Down, and some other times, you know, he talks about the women's liberation movement in sort of a negative light. He had a couple of negative experiences with men and women who were, you know, in women's liberation, and you know, I think it's cool, and I definitely think there should be equality and stuff, and I don't know, Frank Zappa just had some negative experiences with it, and it comes out in some of his music, so that comes in. And then there's a song called He's So Gay, which comes in, and that's my favorite song on the entire thing. Everybody hates it, everybody says it's trash, worst song that Frank Zappa's ever wrote, and I just don't understand it. I think it's amazing. It's so catchy, and it's got this really like high, like, you know, he's so gay in there that my ear just enjoys it so much. And so the story from there, Harry as a boy falls in love with a blow-up doll, and it's called Artificial Rhonda. So he falls in love with keeps talking about how he wants to fall in love and blah, 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 and there's this blow-up doll, and don't ask me how that comes to be, but it materializes. And then at the same time as Harry as a boy is falling in love with Artificial Rhonda, Harry as an adult is starting to fall in love with the Mammy Nuns. He's starting to become physically attracted to the Mammy Nuns, who are, you know, very deformed, and they pee all over everyone and stuff, and and Rhonda is sickened by this. She, you know, she says a lot of mean things to Harry, and Harry's like, I don't care, I'm just into Mammy Nuns. And so this whole thing has gone wonky, very wonky. And then there's a song called Artificial Rhonda, which is about being in love with a plastic blow-up doll. It's pretty raunchy, but the riff is just like bow 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 bow. It's just, oh man, it's a dirty riff, and it's so cool. And so anywho, after all this takes place, Harry as a boy kind of dissipates out of the story eventually, and and then it kind of turns to the evil prince, and I forget which one of these happens first, because Rhonda gets sexually attracted to a briefcase, and she's like having sex with a briefcase, while Harry is like trying to get it on with a Mammy Nun, Sister Abdullah X. Sister Abdullah X is like a little, she's a Mammy Nun, but she's like a little puppet. Like, that's her. She's not like a full-scale Mammy Nun. She's like on Thing-Fish's lap, and she's like a little puppet, and he's like getting very into Sister Abdullah X. And at the same time that this is kind of happening, Rhonda is, you know, having sex with her briefcase and her fountain pen, and she's like kind of going off the rails. This part is a little uncomfortable. I totally can see how people would find this uncomfortable, but it's part of the story. So sometimes sometimes stories are crazy and weird, and you just gotta go with it. So you just kind of let it go, and it just keeps happening. And the evil prince turns out to, I think he gets a hold of the Galut Kalagna, and the evil prince starts to talk like Thing-Fish in a way, but it's very like swanky like this, and I'm the evil prince, and I took the evil potion, and blah blah blah, you know, but he's doing it in the same way. He's talking in the same vernacular as Thing-Fish, and so Thing-Fish is like, oh, evil prince ain't so bad, you know, he's pretty cool. And then that's kind of the end of most of the story. Like, the evil prince just gets a hold of the Galut Kalagna, and they all kind of are like, okay, evil prince ain't that bad. And then it ends with Wonton On, which is No Not Now, a song which is earlier on this album, which is No Not Now, Maybe Later. And then Thing-Fish is like, there ain't gonna be no later, you know. So it's that's kind of cool. And then it ends with Wonton On, which is like a backwards version of it that's very like trippy and weird, and like then that's the end. So yeah, I mean, Thing-Fish, man, you know, I'm gonna give you one more look at Thing-Fish. He's one of the ones they be calling the Mammy Nuns. And inside this, I'll show you kind of what's inside here too, just because it's kind of fun to see what's in here. So then we got the libretto. There he goes. Thing-Fish, the legend. And then you can kind of flip through, and it literally, all this is, it's got pictures, and it's got all the words to every song, every, you know, spoken word passage and everything. So this was really neat that it came with this. You can just read along. I like this back too, because you can see that that's Ike Willis and Frank. And because they really wanted to do this, but Frank couldn't get the funding, and, you know, I mean, people were like, it was a time on Broadway where, you know, experimental things were happening. And here's the warning guarantee sticker that came on a lot of Zappa's albums from this period. He was speaking out against censorship at this time, and yeah, he was very anti, you know, parental advisory. He was anti-censoring art. He believed that music was art and that it shouldn't be censored. He didn't think any kind of art should be censored. It should all be free. And I'll read you what it says on here. So it says, warning guarantee. This album contains material which a truly free society would neither fear nor suppress. In some socially retarded areas, religious fanatics and ultra-conservative political organizations violate your First Amendment rights by attempting to censor rock and roll albums. We feel that this is unconstitutional and un-American. As an alternative to these government-supported programs designed to keep you docile and ignorant, Barking Pumpkins is pleased to provide stimulating digital audio entertainment for those of you who have outgrown the ordinary. The language and concepts contained herein are guaranteed not to cause eternal torment in the place where the guy with the horns and pointed stick conducts his business. This guarantee is as real as the threats of the video fundamentalists who use attacks on rock music in their attempt to transform America into a nation of check-mailing nincompoops. In the name of Jesus Christ, if there is a hell, its fires wait for them, not us. So that's what comes on the warning guarantee. A very heavy message, and I really am stoked that this warning guarantee, I think, was on the plastic, and they cut it off and they left it in with the rest of the stuff. Oh yeah, and there's one more thing in here. It's just like a catalog. Oh man, it's just like a catalog for Zappa stuff. So it's Zappa, the old master, is here, and then inside you've got you can order shit. You can order t-shirts and stuff like that. And then in the back, I want this on a t-shirt. Where is that t-shirt? It exists. I know it exists. So I want that. But yeah, so that was my talk about Thing-Fish. I hope that some people who are swayed maybe by public opinion or maybe that have done maybe who have not heard this, who have done research and been like, no, I'm not going to listen to that. Everyone says it's trash. I hope that this changes your mind, because this album is extremely, it can be very uncomfortable, but it's unlike any other. The closest I can compare it to is Joe's Garage. And everybody loves Joe's Garage. And I do too. I love Joe's Garage dearly. And yes, I would say that Joe's Garage is probably a better album than this. But this is great. You should listen to Thing-Fish. And before I go, one more time. There he is. Let's get the light out of his face. Thing-Fish. And this is Anonymous Bosk. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you all have a great rest of your weekend.